All right, everybody, welcome. Let me put a comment in here for just the class link once again. Link for class info and enrollment. Enrollment. It's two L's. Boom. And let's just test that to make sure I'm giving everybody the right link. Boom and boom. And yep, sure is. Go masterclass.com, registering. Yep, fantastic. Okay, let's have some fun. Everybody, as you all know, my name is Matt Haynes, and I'm just delighted to have David H. Lawrence the 17th with me, at least in virtual space. And this is sort of a 11th hour council of the class and what it is about and what it was about for me when I took it as the first graduating class of it. Is that right, David?
I think it was 2014. It may have been 2015, but if you weren't in the
2014.
first one, which one was it?
2014.
Great. Well, then you were in the first one. You were the initial guinea pigs. We thought it was going to be awesome.
Uh-huh.
Turned out to be even better than we thought it was going to be, and we have people like you to thank for that.
Well, thank you, and yeah, certainly turned out better than I thought it was going to be too. Not that I was cynical about it, but boy. So, folks, a little bit of background. I took the class in 2014 and began bit by bit to do books and then a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And 11 years later, I am working full time as an audiobook narrator. I've got over 140 titles under my belt and actually just scored a book via ACX this morning after auditioning for it this morning. And I have twice today said, I love this job. I love this lifestyle. I am such a lucky man. And I do say that at least once every day when I am working on audiobooks and when I'm doing this. And it did all start with Dan and Dave and David. And I want to start, David, starting with the why, when you and Dan put this whole thing together, what was the impulse, the feeling, the passion that went into it?
Well, to begin with, it was a completely unexpected moment when I just like in casual conversation mentioned to Dan the existence of ACX. We called this the ACX Masterclass mostly because Dan didn't know that ACX existed. He's like, "What's this ACX thing you're talking about?" And Dan and I have known each other for probably 30 years before that. I had been a speaker at and had attended many of his radio events. I came out of radio, Dan came out of radio. That's how we knew each other. And I was a subscriber to his joke service back in the day when I was a morning show host in DC. And so we'd known each other then. And by the way, if you've ever suffered through Dan's website, I'm the guy that built his website back in 1995 or 96, and it still looks like it. Like nothing has changed. Like the only thing that's missing is Comic Sans. If that was there, it would be a complete disaster. But I've known him for a long time, and I had mentioned that he said, "Hey, what are you doing these days?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing more audiobooks these days. There's this new thing that Audible came out with, that Amazon came out with called ACX." And he's like, "What's that?" And I says, "It's the audiobook creation exchange. It's like a dating service between authors and other rights holders, publishers, producers, etc., and narrators, people who can narrate and produce, actually do the finished production on books, because that's what they expect on ACX is a finished product." And he's like, "What? Well, how much does that cost?" I'm like, "Well, you mean the narrators? Nothing. You make money. You don't pay money." And he's like, "Well, what is it? Isn't there a fee for auditioning?" And I'm like, "No." "But what about a yearly subscription to be on it?" "No, no." Well, how about when you sell the book, they take money from you, right? No, they take their portion and we get our portion if that's the way you want to set it up, or it's a per finished hour thing. I mean, I went through this whole thing with him, and this
Right.
was over burgers at Fat Burger. If you've never been to Fat Burger, it's kind of like in your neck of the woods, it's kind of like Tillamook burgers.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I love Tillamook burgers. Anyway, so he's like, well, how many people know about this? And I said, not very many. And this was in 2013, so it was only a couple years after it
Sure.
started in 2011. And I was one of the first people on the platform. They asked me to be a beta tester.
Hmm.
And I ended up being one of their first Audible approved producers. And so the way the conversation evolved was, hey, do you think other voice talent know about this? And if they do know about it, do they know how to take advantage of it? Do they know how to, work the platform profitably? And I'm like, no, but that would be a great class for somebody to offer. So we did.
Hmm.
So that's how it all happened. And the burgers were great. The class was even better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like um I've worked with Dan outside of the ACX Masterclass, and he is a very he's a very investigative fellow, if that's a good adjective for him.
Hmm.
And I love the idea that yeah, indeed, he was the first skeptic, of this, like, really? Wait a second, what?
Right, right,
This
right. Yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah. He
this
was
actually can.
absolutely it was unbelievable to him. And I'm like, well, think about it from Amazon's perspective.
Hmm.
And that's what we teach in the class is why did they do this and why don't they charge for it?
Hmm.
Because when Amazon bought Audible in the aughts in the 2000s, they realized, the reason they were doing it was because they had Kindle. They had millions of titles that had not yet been turned into audiobooks. So it became oh, well, we have this Audible now. Why
Hmm.
don't we like create a process for all these Kindle authors to get their books turned into audiobooks by these professional narrators?
Right,
And
right.
so, and I love the notion of sharing in the success of something and being responsible for sharing in the struggles for things as well. I remember when I first told other people in the union about ACX, and they were only used to per finished hour work. That was it. And in those days, per finished hour work was anywhere between 100 and $175 per finished hour. It's a lot more now in
Yeah.
terms of union rates. But in those days, that's what it was. And they were thrilled with that. That's what we do for a living. That's how we make our money. We get paid once. That's it. We know we're going to get paid this amount for this amount of work.
Mhm.
And I'm like, but what if it's a real success? What if it's like, what if you do a great job? You don't get residuals like you do for on camera work or for other commercial work, for voiceover work. And they're like, oh, it's a race to the bottom. And it's like, all right, you just keep that notion, you keep thinking that, and I'll just go over here and take advantage of what's going on. And the first six books that I did, uh, they paid more than my mortgage. And one of them continues to pay a good portion of my mortgage. So, I love the idea that I've made more money with most of my titles than legacy narrators make with if they're charging at least union base rates, the one-time payment of per finished hour. So it's got some joy in it for me in terms of having this dot-com mentality, like, revenue share, let's do that. So, yeah, and that still was unbelievable to Dan as well. Like, wait a minute, they keep paying you as the books are being sold. Now, to be fair, there are an awful lot of projects on ACX that are not worth your or my time as a narrator to
Sure.
do because they're going to sell very few copies. I
Right.
always liken it to the copy of the book that's going to sell one copy to the author himself or herself and one to their mom.
Mhm.
And some of those projects are like that, but there are other projects that if you know how to find them,
Right,
they
right.
can be a lot more lucrative than getting paid that one time per finished hour payment. And now ACX is covered if you're a union member. ACX has been covered for over a decade as a union covered work. So you can continue to enjoy the union membership that you have and also do great work on ACX. And I'll stop talking now.
Right. Well, David and I are both union, and I was able to get my union card through my work as an audiobook narrator. I didn't have hardly any commercials under my belt. I had like one short film under my belt, but I was able to go SAG-AFTRA with my work through audiobook narration.
Yep. It is far and away the easiest way to get into SAG-AFTRA. One
Mm,
union covered book, meaning at least per finished hour of $250 per finished hour, or a royalty share plus project of at least $100 per finished hour, and you can jump right into the union.
David, what is the most enjoyable part of running this class? And because the class consists of lessons and modules that you're not in front of the students live doing it the whole time, but you do get to interface with each new class and
Mhm.
do a Q&A and also mentor as as questions come up and that sort of thing. And I've been personally just telling people just how impressed I am with how generous you are with your time. Not saying that that's a guarantee. Don't want anybody to feel entitled to a certain amounts of your time, but I've noticed that almost every time I've raised a question on a Facebook group that is applicable and hasn't already been answered with the resources that are offered and that sort of thing, you jump right in. And
Yeah, well,
yeah,
the question you originally asked was, what do I find most gratifying from this, and what do I,
yeah,
or some words to that effect?
yeah.
The number nearly 8,000. That is the number of titles that the students and graduates of the ACX Masterclass have produced and are on sale in the Audible marketplace and on Apple Books and on Amazon since we started the class. 8,000 titles. I couldn't be happier about that result. It would be a little disappointing if we did this class and we're like, yeah, it's great, you should do it, blah, 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 with no results whatsoever or very few results. Not a lot of training programs can do that. No, not a lot of training programs can say that. There are acting classes that are like, you just take our acting class and you'll be booking like crazy. And it's like that's kind of a false promise to make. It's kind of like selling the dream. And we say very clearly, listen, you might not do any work in this. You might find this work to be once you get into it, it's like it's just too much for you. It's overwhelming. I don't know. I have very, very elderly clients. I have very young clients. I have people all the way in between. And most of the time, they're not overwhelmed. I have talked to people on the spectrum about if it's overwhelming for them. And they're like, not the way you say it, not the way you explain it.
Mhm.
And so I just feel really proud of what the people that I have mentored have been able to do. I also, continue to do my work as an audiobook narrator. I'm doing pretty well in that space, as well as pursuing the other things that people know me for on camera, other categories of voiceover work, other areas of training that I do in the world of voiceover. And so, but that the my peeps, they were look at what they were able to do. I mean, I would have been happy if it's like, yeah, we got a few hundred books in the marketplace, but then it just started to mount, and then we have the Audi nominees and award winners that
Yeah,
have come out of the class, and so that's what really is most gratifying is that what we teach works.
yeah, yeah. And um, It's one of those things for me. My experience taking the class was it's one of those things where once I was given the tools and I practiced them, it was very much like driving a car, right? It was like, okay, so there's this. Okay, but then eventually, as with driving a car, hopefully, so many things become automatic that it becomes just a very smooth ride and a very smooth process. But looking back on what I didn't know and just how I liken it to, and one of the reasons why I so proudly, say, hey, yeah, I am an affiliate of this, and I'm an ambassador for this class. I tell people, I've got a tax preparation service, and they appreciate referrals as well, right? And it's like, yeah, if you really get this stuff already and you know where, what parts to actually read and what parts to not, no, I'm talking about tax forms here. You know what parts to, and how it all works and how the great. These people create a very clear through line and all the arrows to where I need to sign and where I need to enter my information. And that's what I consider you and Dan to do. And it's not only in terms of the tech of recording, but also my priorities when
Mhm.
recording in terms of the artistry that I put into it, where I put the sweat, where I don't put the sweat,
Yeah.
because not all sweat is helpful. And also my relationships with my authors, how to really take care of my authors, how to take care of boundaries as
Hmm.
well, so
Hmm.
that we have the healthiest process possible. And, folks, my first book was about 35 minutes long, and I was a nervous wreck. But what kept me with it was just the guidance of the class, the practicalities, and also another piece that I want to go into is the peer support, the community that has grown with this. It was by reading different posts by people in the group who were part of my graduating class, and just being like, okay, I think this is doable. I think I'm entitled to succeed in this because I've done this, and this, and this. I think I'm gonna finish the project and see all,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. Um, yeah.
It's hard to start something new, you have that moment where you're like, am I going to fail at this? Is this going to be awful? Is the result going to be just pitiful? Or am I going to be good enough to do this so that I'll have to like do it again? Oh my God, what kind of a job am I giving myself, right? There's all these fears that we have, fears of the unknown, certainly fears of the technology. Some people come into it and they go, I've heard it's like onerous. It's like devastatingly onerous to do this kind of work. And I'm like, well, we have a process called the stair step method that we've improved and refined over the years so that now it's actually two fingers over the keyboard as opposed to having a mouse click that you have to do. And the assembly of an audiobook right now is still as high quality as it can possibly be, but it's a lot faster. And so you're more efficient in doing your work.
Mhm.
That's come from the community suggesting things. It's come from me working on a book that, let's say, is, dual column, double truck, as opposed to, scrolling from page to page. Well, how do you handle that? Not overspending on the gear. The idea that you have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on the gear.
Right, right.
I'm sorry, I didn't, don't, don't want you to. Um, how simple can we make it,
Right,
and still
right.
maintain the quality that is really important? But I do get that it's a risk. It's like anything that you pursue, especially in the world of performance, because there's no guarantees. Anybody that's telling you, oh, you can make $1 million in your underwear at night at home, in your bedroom, maybe they're not talking about, performance work. I'm not sure. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of people are making promises that They can't keep, they can't guarantee, and we want you to know that going in. One of the things that has happened over the years is developing that relationship that you talked about with the rights holder. We now have a template that we give people for a welcome kit
Hmm. Hmm.
that
Yeah,
shows the rights holder, the author, the publisher, the producer, that's what they call them, the rights holder,
sure.
how to work with you, what you expect so that the process is smooth. And we also have some things that legacy narrators don't really agree with, but that we think work better. You know, legacy narrators are like, nope, I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to be directed. Totally understood. So I don't give them the book until I'm done with it. That way they can't, if you mispronounce a character's name in the first chapter and then you proceed to mispronounce that name all the way through the book, maybe our way is a little bit better. And you manage the whole notion of um, it's not your job to direct me once we do the 15-minute checkpoint. I gotcha. But we have our way of doing things, and the stair step method also is something that those who learned punch and roll look at as like a competition. It's really not. It's just the same way of getting to the same place. So we have ways of doing things that have been honed and refined over the years by that community and by my work in the industry every day. And we just feel like it works. And that's what we like about it.
Well, the idea of something mm, magically just boom, just something amazing happening and scoring you tons and tons of money and tons of success, very quickly and that sort of thing. I mean, anything's possible, but what I appreciate about it, I remember when Harrison Ford was being interviewed about the success of Star Wars Episode 4, right? And oh, I accidentally flashed my thumb, and now it gives me a thumbs up. Fine. Yay. But he said that when that happened, it wasn't so much I've got it made, but now I can get to work. And that's sort of that's what I feel like the class gave me. It was like, okay, now I can get to work. Just I there's no shame in it. There's no sense of immortality in it. It's not an Icarus thing. It's simply, yeah, okay, I've got the tools. I know it works. In the uncertainty, I just am going to work, 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 work. And there's a margin of error and a margin of things that I will need to work on, a margin of, oh gosh, wait a second, I'm in kind of a fix right now. I need to fix the fix. Um, that sort of thing. What I tell people is that, first of all, you and Dan are not a producing organization. You are not talent agents. It doesn't work like that.
No,
And then what I also tell people is, yeah, it can sometimes take a lot of auditions. It's not a backbreaking number of auditions. It's
certainly
simply,
not like other categories of performance.
yeah.
There's a lot more. I look at it as one of the lowest hanging fruit,
Hmm.
not just in voiceover, but in performance in general. So if you're doing on camera and you're doing stage work and you're doing commercials and you're doing voiceover, audiobooks, there's a lot of titles out there that still have yet to be, and it's not like it's letting up either. I
Mhm.
have encountered, I work for publishers as well as doing work on ACX, and I've encountered books where the authors are like, why would anybody want to listen to my book? They can't
Mm.
imagine it being an audiobook. And one of the things that we do in the class, the final module, as a matter of fact, that we didn't have when you took the class, is called Beyond ACX.
Mm.
And it's how to take all the things that you learn in the class and go after work with the big publishers, with the production platforms, with the hybrid publishers and the vanity publishers and the producers that will package a book for you. Um, Along those lines, I was, this is kind of like what you learn to do serendipity wise in the business. I was reading an article in the New York Times about the undersea cables that carry internet traffic around the world between the continents. And how vulnerable they are. They come ashore, and if you've got an axe, you can use it and really screw things up, like a lot worse than an explosion in a particular place. You want to shut the world down. The people have talked about this vulnerability for a while, and this professor at NYU had written a book called The Undersea Network. And it was interesting to me, and I wanted to listen to it. So, of course, I went to Audible and looked up the title, no audiobook. So in the article, it mentioned that she was an NYU professor. So I went to nyu.edu and went to the faculty section and found her and sent her an email saying, "Hey, am I missing this? Or is there an audiobook on the way? Or is it like only available to professionals? Or what's the story?" And she wrote me back. And she's like, "Who would want to listen to my book? It was a doctoral thesis." And it's like, okay, I want to listen to the book because I'm interested in this. And if think of the rule of 250. If I am, maybe there are another couple hundred people in the world that would want to as
Mm.
well. So I mean, she was like, we can talk to my publisher, and they kind of patted me on the head and said, "We know how to make audiobooks. We'll make an audiobook if we want to." And like 6 months later, I get a call from Audible saying, "Are you available to do this book called The Undersea Network? The author asked for you." And it's like learning how to make those connections within the industry, in addition to the simple task of narrating and producing retail ready audio that can be offered for sale right off the bat, and all the little tiny things that make you a valuable resource to an author or a publisher or a producer. That's what we're going for, is all those little paint pots that you can dip your brush into. Tools have come along like positron, and I created a piece of software called Audio Cupcake, where you can drag the raw wave file that you create, drop it on it, and it automatically spits out MP3 files that are perfectly
Uh,
matched to what to and any ACX Masterclass student or graduate gets a free copy of it.
oh, jeez.
So you let me know. You don't have one, you let me know.
Okay, I don't.
But
I don't have one.
all right, great. Are you using Windows or Mac?
Mac.
Great, perfect. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll get you that. But anyway, the point is we have a number of tools that we rely on, that we teach. And what we try to do is create a very comfortable place, not only for you to succeed, but also for you to fail, to figure out what doesn't
Mm.
work.
Hmm.
And to do so in a way that is instructive and constructive. And so, yeah, it's great. And Matt's link will take you right there to get all the details. But it's people like you that have gone on to do many, many books and create a name for yourself. Yeah, I remember attending one of your sessions where you were showing people. It was kind of, to me, it was kind of like a behind the scenes reel. Like,
Mm.
here's how I do my scripts and all that.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, this is great. This is like, I wonder what his life would have been like if he hadn't gone down this path with audiobooks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I love what you've done. So, yeah.
Well. Oh, yeah. Once again, I love this job. I love this lifestyle. I am such a lucky man. And so folks, have a look at the materials if you haven't seen the class offering yet. Enrollment does close Friday at what time?
9 p.m. Pacific.
9 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah. Tomorrow
And
night as we're doing this video.
yeah. And think about it. It's doing this as a career requires investment and some time, and again some trial and error, like David said, and times to fail, times to, but also that can be a really joyous time as well, because it's in those times that I find community really happens. And I guess one of my best friends is actually a fellow graduate, and that happened because I was like, I really could use some help and some support in this thing. And
Mhm.
um, yeah, so I'm Matt Haynes. This is David H. Lawrence. As your friends in the world of audiobooks, I hope that our voices and your ears meet again real soon.